Welcome to Impact News. As you know, I am Carol Angela Davis. I want to start with some conversation about protecting our countryside here in the United States. Everywhere, protecting land, especially historic land, because increasingly you're hearing stories of historic land being used for things like commercial developments or housing developments. That's what's going on in Texas in a national forest. So we got problems going on, a state forest. We got problems going on. Now we got to worry about the data centers, folks. That's right. Humongous data centers taking over the U.S. countryside. That is what is going on. They are threatening Civil War era and post-emancipation historical sites, for example, in rural Virginia. No, we can't have that. Data centers, as you know, those are places where companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, that's of course where they share and store and distribute data. Apparently, the data centers are showing up in places like Manassas, Virginia, the Manassas National Battlefield Park. And now there's a storage center. Are you serious? That's what they want to do, folks. We have to be careful. And at that park, that's where two very key engagements of the U.S. Civil War took place. So this is very important historical ground for the United States. They're also showing up in historic sites that preserve the country's history of slavery and emancipation. There's a lot of ways to obliterate history. Data centers are simply not going to be one of them. We got to fight like heck for that. All right, there's also showing up in one area where the remains of one of the only schools accessible to black students in the state of Virginia in the late 19th century. They want to put a data center there. And also the unmarked graves from the Civil War area. They don't care. They just want a data center. Well, there's enough land in America. Move the freaking data center so we don't have to destroy our history. It seems like every time you turn around, there's some affrontal on history. It's not going to be a data center that we have to worry about. Stay with me. We are back with your news stories for the week. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they have a report that says that black dads are more likely to interact with their child than their white and Hispanic peers. Bet you didn't know that, because that's not portrayed in the media. 70% of black fathers who live with their children are most likely to have bathed, dressed, changed, or helped their child with the toilet every day and eaten with their children. That is compared to only 60% of their white counterparts and only 45% of their Hispanic counterparts. Now, the research also indicates that black fathers often step into the role of step parent or maintain consistent involvement when living outside the home. All right, moving on to former President Obama. He's criticizing GOP hopefuls Nikki Haley and Tim Scott for glossing over the effects of racism. Tim Scott, the only African-American in the GOP primary pool, and also Nikki Haley, as you know, she is Indian-American. Obama says there's a long history of African-American or other minority candidates within the Republican Party who will validate America and say, everything's fine, we can make it. He says, Obama says these candidates don't include a plan for addressing crippling generational poverty that we know is a consequence of hundreds of years of racism in this society. I hope that Nikki Haley and Tim Scott can do better, but I do not think that is going to happen. Let's move on. The U.S. Army is renaming Louisiana's Fort Polk. You remember Fort Polk, okay? It's going to shed its Confederate namesake, and it's going to be officially named Fort Johnson. That's after a black World War I hero, Sergeant William Henry Johnson. Johnson's actions, just so you know, on the front lines in France earned him the nickname of Black Death. Oh, yes, he wasn't playing, okay? He also got a posthumous Medal of Honor about 100 years after he died. On May 15, 1918, here's what he did. He single-handedly stopped German forces from approaching a main French line and taking his fellow soldier prisoner. In the process, he did it even though he had been wounded 21 times. That's right, folks. But the Army didn't mention Johnson's debilitating injuries or discharge in his discharge records, which of course meant he also did not get a disability allowance. That is the story of most black soldiers back in the day. But you'll say, because if it's not mentioned in your discharge, it's hard to get that pension. He was reportedly destitute when he died at the age of only 32 in 1929, folks. President Barack Obama awarded him the Medal of Honor. That was in 2015. Okay, so now that's Louisiana's Fort Polk. It's now Fort Johnson. They're getting it done. Let's go to the Department of Justice. It found that Minneapolis police engaged in a pattern of aggression and discrimination. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland saying that the 2020 murder of George Floyd was part of a pattern of practice of excessive force used by the department and years of unlawful discrimination against Black Americans and also Native Americans. Garland says the Minneapolis PD routinely uses excessive force, often when no force is necessary, including unjust, deadly force and unreasonable use of tasers. Now, the DOJ and the city will now negotiate towards a consent decree towards reforming the Minneapolis Police Department. Good. Then get this, a 64-year-old Penn State professor, folks, charged after admitting to repeated sexual intercourse with a dog. You heard me correct. He was a professor, okay? 64-year-old Themis Matsoukas, he's facing counts of open lewdness and indecent exposure. Apparently, his sexual acts were caught on the trail cameras. Yeah, okay? And the professor engaged in acts which reportedly were while naked, only wearing a ski mask, watch, boots, and a backpack. For his part, Matsoukas said, "I do it to blow off steam." Okay, dude, tell yourself anything. As for Penn State University, they have placed him on leave, as we all are happy to hear that. All right, then let's go to Detroit, where police in Detroit say a 6-year-old boy shot his infant sibling twice. That's right, folks, after finding a loaded gun in his home. The 1-year-old boy is very fortunate to be alive and was reportedly in a baby bouncer. All right, when the older boy shot the infant in the cheek and the left shoulder. That's right, folks. The gun in question was unregistered. The shooting comes months after Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed that law that requires gun owners to keep their weapons in a locked storage box, especially when it is reasonably known that a minor is or likely to be on the premises. The two parents are cooperating with investigators. Well, I would hope. Now, we're going to go to the climate. Will this year be the hottest year on record? Early data is showing that temperatures in June hit record highs ahead of El Nino. They're hitting record highs already, folks. Let's face it, okay? And folks, the experts say El Nino is going to have a significant heating effect when it gets here. Preliminary global average temperatures taken so far in June are nearly 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit above levels previously recorded for the same month, going all the way back to 1979, over 40 years, almost 45 years. There's also a good chance the average temperature will exceed 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, and of course, and that's beyond industrial times. That's the key threshold. You remember that. It was agreed by governments, and that's the key threshold at which heat waves, droughts, flooding, and other climate impacts simply become significantly worse. Well, we're very close to that. We're on our way. We're less than a degree from it if we keep this mess up. Let's take a look at Haiti, where there are 3 million children in desperate need of help. That's the highest number on record. Haiti and its children facing staggering levels of violence. They have exacerbated the hunger issues there, the malnutrition, and of course, there's been a resurgence of deadly cholera. Children are simply caught in the crossfire. They're being killed or injured on their way to school. Women and girls are facing extreme sexual violence. Their kidnappings and ransom attacks on schools have skyrocketed. Hunger and, as we said, that life-threatening malnutrition are a problem. All of this, of course, is driving the kids towards the violent gangs because it means food and income for the family. Haiti has just gotten such a raw deal for so many years, and Haiti needs help, and we need to be helping. All right, let's travel to Africa, and we're going to go to Kenya to be exact, where Mark Zuckerberg's Meta faces a legal offensive from content moderators. The job of the content moderator, as you know, is to remove violent and hateful publications from Facebook. Well, the employees over there in Kenya are complaining of inhumane working conditions, misleading hiring methods, they say, irregular and inadequate pay. Is just disgraceful, as well as being dismissed because they tried to form a union. You know, that's how they do it now. You try to form a union, they dismiss you. And also, they say there's inaction on hate speech, which the plaintiffs say led to the 2021 murder of a university professor in Ethiopia. Well, finally, today we're going to take a look at sports, where the World Soccer governing body, or football if you're not in the United States, governing body, that would be FIFA, has announced an anti-racism task force. It's about time. Featuring Real Madrid's winger Vinicius Jr. Now, Vinicius Jr. was racially abused by Valencia supporters in an incident which provoked outrage all over the world, folks. Supporters who were found guilty supporters of Valencia, who were found guilty of abusing Vinicius, were issued stadium bans and fines by Spanish authorities. It just doesn't seem like the reaction to racism over there is strong enough. I mean, certainly you can see it with Europe. Look at the way that the conversation about Meghan Markle is all negative. And there are these sports people are out here playing their hearts out, trying to give all they have to the sports community, and they're being abused racially, and somebody gets banned from a stadium. That's just simply not enough. Those are your stories. Stay with me. Hello, folks. Your Slay Word of the Week as we level up our vocab, because you know we're always trying to slay it out there. Well, the word of the week is schism, S-C-H-I-S-M. It is a noun coming from the Greek in the late 14th century, if you can believe that. The definition is a split or division between strongly opposed sections or parties, usually caused by differences in opinion or belief. Okay, let's use that in a sentence. The argument at Thanksgiving dinner over who makes the best gravy caused a schism in the family, and the family planned a gravy tournament for Christmas. Well, that'll cure it. Here's another sentence. You would think that with Donald Trump's second indictment, there would be a schism in the GOP when it comes to him. But of course, their party of law and order is actually not for law and order. All right. That's your Slay Word of the Week, schism. We know what it means, a split or division between strongly opposed sections or parties caused by differences of opinion or belief. Use it in your conversations this week and slay it.
I'm just sick and tired of us not spending time together lately.
I know, baby. I know. I'm sorry I ain't been spending time with you. I was been working on this big deal. It's gonna bring a lot more money to the household for it.
What you doing here, boss?
Yeah, just checking to see if you still got it.
You take this work. Your partner. I don't want it back.
I've seen the movies, man. I know how this goes.
You see the movie, huh? What you see? Goodfellas, New Jack City.
Everything I do is for you. Like, I just need a little bit more time, man. Fine bullshit. Like I said, he's gonna call any second.
Why don't you take a look at this video? Guess what? It's starring you.
Where are you? We're out there looking for you. We want our African American girls to know we are looking for you, and our African American families, and with the community's help, we are going to find you. Here's the story this week. She was 17 years old, just 17 years old, when she was reported missing, and that happened on February 3rd of this year, and she went missing in Austin, Texas. Now, she's about 5'1" tall. She has black hair, she has brown eyes, and she weighs about 190 pounds. Her name again is Sherelle Walker, 17 years old, missing in February from Austin, Texas. We hope that you will help us find our missing African American girls, because with your help, we can get the job done. Back at you with the International Report with Dr. Inyang Ebong-Harsham. Edie, I know you're looking at stories all over the world. What's out there for us today?
Well, I thought that I would report on the Windrush scandal, which is still rumbling on 5 years after the UK government apologized. Why do I want to look at this story? Because I think last week I talked about migration and the fact that we are going to see a lot more displacement and movement of people. And so I find all these stories whereby communities that have had a long, long presence since post-Second World War are treated as badly as the Caribbean people were treated in the United Kingdom. There were many boats that came, but for some reason, the one that's captured the imagination is the Windrush, Majesty's Windrush. And they came post-World War II, 1948, between 1948 and 1971. 500,000 people from the Caribbean came to England to help the mother country recover from the Second World War. In 2018, and that was under Theresa May, if I'm not mistaken. In 2018, the Home Office decided that there were long-standing Caribbean people that had been there. They couldn't prove, because some of them were children when they came and they were on their parents' passports. They couldn't prove that they had a right to be in the United Kingdom. So what they did was forcibly deport them. When all of this came to light, the government were in hot water because these people had beyond a right to be in the United Kingdom. And so they had to apologize and they had to make financial restitution. What is now emerging is that financial restitution has not reached the bulk of the people that should have gotten it.
Why am I not shocked?
So far, they've only processed 6,122 claims out of 12,000. They're saying that they've met the amount of claims that have been presented. But what is being said is that it's the Home Office that's processing these claims, the very same Home Office that went after these people in the first place. So a lot of people may not necessarily have come forward. So the question is, should the Home Office be the right place to administer these claims? The answer probably is not.
Yeah, I would agree. I got a question, Eni. Now, they said they only have 6,000. They're processing them, I guess, as fast as they come in. Now, right. Are they over there in the Caribbean where they deported the people? Are they over there advertising? Do they have an office set up over there letting people know that this is, have they done anything like that?
I think that the claims has been basically UK based, and dealing with the families in the UK that either make claims for the families that were forcibly deported or something of that nature. But it seems to me to be very much based in the United Kingdom.
So they're not even letting them know. I mean, who knows what's going on? You get deported to an island or a place, a home that you may not have ever really known if you
exactly
as a child.
Exactly, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point, that they didn't know it as children. And there's the really sad story of this gentleman, that the way his whole trouble started was that he lost his job and he wanted to go for employment, and he suddenly couldn't prove that he had the right to work in the United Kingdom. And so with that, he lost his job, he lost his income, his wife died of cancer. She was able to resolve her claim before her passing. The way they got the money to bury her was by talking about it live on radio, and then obviously the Home Office got embarrassed. So by the afternoon, they came forward with some $40,000, 20,000 initially, and then it went up to 40,000. So there are real people behind these stories that have really, really suffered.
Yeah, it's just very sad. And in the United States, of course, we got all kinds of problems over here with the way we're treating immigrants, and hopefully we got enough people in place to start pushing things in the right direction. But you just have to look at Haiti to see what Europe has done to that country. I mean, and really is still doing, when you look at France, what they're still doing to that country. So I hope that we can be more united. I know there's some initiatives going on in the Caribbean to get closer to Africa. So I'm hoping that, and the diaspora is going to come together and we can do better supporting.
I think that at the end of the day, when you see the growth, you don't get that sense, but there's a lot of growth in Africa. There's a growth trajectory there. And of course, we find ourselves caught between Russia and China, who are terribly interested in us, which we must manage with great skill, if you ask me. But I can really see the power of the diaspora and Africa. If they get together, I can really, really see how we can be mutually reinforcing.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope that initiative gains more steam. That's your International Report. I'm Carol Angela Davis. This is Dr. Inyang Ebon-Harstrom. Eni, we'll see you next week with more stories from around the world. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Carol.
Welcome to your financial news. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Let's go to UPS, where workers there are planning to strike as labor negotiations continue. Now, the workers want things like air conditioning in vehicles. Wow, there's a new concept as we're involved in global warming. They want pay increases for part-time workers. They want that pay to go up to at least $25 per hour. They want the elimination of a two-tier wages for package drivers. They also want to eliminate driver-facing cameras. Yeah, can you imagine what that must be like? And they want an end to a forced 6 day of work. Can you imagine that? A forced 6 day of work in a week, and more. They want more full-time opportunities. Sounds perfectly reasonable. About 340,000 workers at the shipping giant UPS, they're represented by the Teamsters. They have voted to authorize the strike when their current contract expires, and that happens on July 31st if a new tentative agreement isn't reached with the company by then. Now, negotiations on the national agreement between UPS and the Teamsters, we should let you know, they began in early May 2023 and they remain ongoing. We hope they can settle that, but the workers do need to be treated better. All right, let's go to U.S. power companies, because in recent years, U.S. power companies made political donations, are you ready for this, of at least $215 million, baby, to dark money groups. Why am I not surprised? Remember, the power is part of the problem of the global warming, so of course they're paying everybody off. That's basically what it amounts to, because they're giving these campaign contributions to get what they want. Now, these secretive donations helped utilities increase electricity prices. They hinder solar schemes and help to elect sympathetic people to state legislatures. Now, in Arizona and Alabama, you should know this. Power companies face blowback after they used dark money now, okay, to aid the election of friendly regulators. In Michigan, regulators barred another company from using dark money entirely after it spent $43 million on politics in just 3 years. Who got that money? In 2021 in Ohio, First Energy Corporation pleaded guilty to using dark money groups to bribe politicians in exchange for bailouts, folks. Florida Power and Light, Florida, Ron DeSantis, who's surprised, used dark money to interfere with ballot initiatives and the elections of 5 politicians who in part aimed to tackle the high prices of electric bills and environmental and climate goals. Stop it. Greed. We have to make sure everyone understands that greed is not a value in our society. And once we can get people's mind turned to understand that these greedy people are actually really bad people, even if they're really rich, that's when things will start to turn. Thanks for watching. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Don't go away.
Anyone who thinks that slavery ended in the 1860s with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation are grievously wrong.
If we caught a bird, we ate through the feathers and ate the bird. We didn't have nothing to cook on. We didn't have no stove.
You know who you are and who we are.
We're still on that big plantation.
She was bonded to them until they died. She was their slave.
They said, well, we're going to be killed tonight.
Could that same white dude keep terrorists there? Or Russian spies, or the KGB, and the government wouldn't know it? No.
They thought I was beat so bad that I couldn't do nothing, but I did.
Welcome as we close the show down with your health in mind, like we always do with Dr. K. Welcome, Dr. K.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. You know, I'm always talking about food as our medicine. Very rarely do I talk about medicine, but I want to highlight a major development, which is the RSV vaccine. RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, is a not uncommon pneumonia in little children. And it is believed that this turns on the immune system of the children in a very different way. And up until now, there's been no movement on the development of the vaccine until the technology for the COVID-19 vaccine became useful. Wow. There is now a vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus. It is being marketed to adults. And the FDA recently recommended the vaccine for children. Extremely important development because it may be the reason why, first of all, children don't get RSV pneumonia, which can have pulmonary complications, but also it will not, because the child doesn't get the actual RSV pneumonia, perhaps it will not turn on their immune system and have so many children that are allergic to so many things. So good things are happening, and the horrors of COVID-19 may have brought us other developments in medicine that can be quite useful to keeping our families safe. So if your pediatrician suggests to you that you give the RSV vaccine for your children, think about it. It may protect them against allergens.
Wow. Real quick, Dr. K, I'm just wondering what else is coming out. I don't know if you're aware of it yet. I don't know if it's come out yet, but what other?
I don't know. I was very surprised to hear about this. So we really have to wait and see what could be on the horizon. But a lot of interesting things are happening.
Well, that's the silver lining of, because we lost 1 million people, but that is the silver lining, that we were able to take care of some of these other things. Thank you so much, Dr. K. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. From all of us here at Impact News, we will all see you next week for more information, I should say, that keeps you informed about your world, lets you know what's going on internationally, and tells you about your health. Thank you again, Dr. K. We'll see you next week.
You're welcome.